Hello, one and all, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Just Another Movie Guy podcast. I am Bobby Brooks, and I am just another movie guy. For those of you who may not know who I am, if you're stumbling across this podcast, firstly, I want to say hello and thank you for checking out what I'm doing today. I am Bobby Brooks. I am the bass player for a band called Our Hollow, Our Home out of Southampton, UK. If you do know who I am, you know I am an avid lover of film. I'm a comic book writer, script writer, a novelist, and I'm always working on new stories and always talking about films and stories and books and games and anything and everything that just encapsulate storytelling. That's what I'm about. That's what my life is kind of driven by, especially nowadays where, as of recording this, we are in UK lockdown. COVID-19 crisis is currently happening the world over, and it's ruining everybody's lives currently. Those that are fighting on the front line have it especially hard, so big shout out to all of those. But as it stands at the moment, we are all stuck in our homes, and I've been putting off doing this podcast for quite a while, to be honest. It's something that I've always wanted to do because I'm always talking about films and not necessarily talking to the people who want to be talking to me about films. So I thought we'll put it into a medium where I can get people on the show and talk to them in an environment where they actually want me to be rambling on about a film to them for up to an hour of their time. So seeing as everybody is stuck in their homes and we don't really have anything to do other than, sit on Netflix, YouTube, play games, listen to podcasts and music on Spotify, this is the perfect time for me to finally get this show on the road. So Just Another Movie Guy is a podcast which myself and guests will be coming on and talking about certain films. I would have liked to start it with new releases, but as all the cinemas are closed, we're not seeing any new films. But there are a few films I have seen already this year that have come out in 2020 that I will be discussing. But for now, I'm going to be getting guests on to talk about big movie franchises. And this episode today is a guest show, and I'll be introducing my guest a little bit later down the line. And we're going to be talking about one of the biggest movie franchises that the world has ever seen. So look forward to that in a few minutes or so. But quickly before we do that, I want to explain something else that this show will have included, and that is a opportunity for listeners and my guests to win free goodies of their favorite movies. And all that we have to do together to get that done is I will be quizzing the people that come on the show about the movies that they're coming to talk about, and they will rank on a list. And you guys, if you're listening, there will be a way on all of our socials, so Just Another Movie Guy, search it, you'll find our socials. There will be ways for you to win the goodies just by listening to these shows, and they will be posted at a later date. But just so you know, you can win some free stuff. And if you're like me, who has a shelf next to me with plus 100 pop vinyls and collectibles and books, you're not going to want to miss out on this, to be honest. So keep a weather eye on that horizon, because that's something that you're going to want to get on as soon as it's available. Also, there's going to be small parts of this show which are going to be YouTube exclusive, which are going to be the Just Another Movie Guy quickies, which are going to be small review sections where I'm going to be talking about films that I've seen, new releases in the cinema and Netflix that I don't have a guest to talk about. They will literally be short reviews, just myself talking. So if you're not enjoying listening to this right now, you're not going to really enjoy going and listening to that. But I implore you, keep an eye on our socials, because there might be some films that come up on there that you're going to want to listen to a review for. Maybe you haven't seen before. There's a bunch of Netflix movies coming out at the moment. I've seen Extraction and The Platform, which I'm going to be talking about on the first quickie episode, which will be coming shortly after this one airs. So you might be interested in listening to some of them, and if you do, I would really appreciate the support. Now that is all out of the way, we can get down to the bread and butter of this podcast, which is the guest show, the Just Another Movie Guy guest show. Today, we're going to be talking about the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and probably brushing over The Hobbit whilst we're there as well. But first, I need to introduce you to my esteemed guest for today. To all who are listening, prepare yourself for a whirlwind of opinion, the most aggressive man to grace the podium of debate. He is the brains and the brawn behind 6 Point Media, the Mindset Chronicles, and the drum kit of Our Hollow, Our Home. Please welcome to the show, Nicholas Taliadoros.
Yeah, ooh, if there is not some form of soundboard of a giant audience clapping for my entrance, I will not be pleased.
You know it. I've already got it prepared, mate.
Oh, thank God for that.
how are you? How are you doing?
Jeez, yeah, I'm good. I mean, we were just talking on the phone, and I'm great, bro. Like, this has been the best time of my life. You know, I can't. This has been a weird one, right? So, like, for a few weeks, I've absolutely crushed it, and like, I've really put effort into the Mindset Chronicles. I've just launched In the Box University, which is for anyone who wants to learn mixing and mastering and recording. And it's from like demoing at home all the way through to professional recording. And then there'll be a course on everything. And it's called In the Box University because I pretty much want to take out the idea of going to university and spending 30 grand on a course that doesn't teach you how to go get a job. Whereas what we will be doing is teaching everyone all of the skills you need, and then all of the business skills, and then all of the marketing skills, so you actually can have some form of fighting chance at going and getting a credible career in music. So it's cool, like, because we launched that last week, and then obviously 6 Point Media are doing our thing, and we've got some more stuff we're launching soon as well. And then obviously with Hollow, I am still drumming, and it's been really cool. And then this week, God, I miss the gym. I know you're the same as me. It's just, Jesus. Like, any time that you're like, God, I'm having a bad day, at least you can go to the gym and then sweat it out with some real heavy lifting. The heaviest.
But now you have to kind of find a big bag of cement or something in your garden shed to bench press and then feel miserable about yourself.
I tried deadlifting my car. I know it's a small car, but it's actually heavier than it looks, you know. I'm not quite Hercules yet, you know, like. But yeah, so all in all, I'm actually, everything's all right. I mean, it all boils down to, because then the thing is, I go through these weeks and I'm like, oh my God, everything is trash. And then you take a step back, you actually, you have some silence for once. And then you're like, yeah, my life's not that bad. Everything's great. Like, perspective and gratitude and all that. So
you've been working hard on all the 6 Point Media stuff behind the scenes. Everybody, I imagine the majority of people who are going to be tuning into this first podcast are going to know exactly who you are and exactly what you do and follow you like they do myself. But you have just launched the Mindset Chronicles again, haven't you? The new version of the old podcast that me and you set up.
Yeah, so you're actually going to be one of the top 10 guests who comes on, obviously.
As an original founder.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the whole reason for you coming on. Otherwise, nobody wants to know what you're saying.
We'll find out once the statistics come in for this podcast.
No, dude, I'm glad you're doing this. But yeah, the Mindset Chronicles is it's cool because I'm basically doing a little bit of a twist to what we did before, which is it was a podcast designed before to talk about a specific area around mindset, goal setting. That's the only one I can think of right now, I'm not gonna lie. That I know we recorded. But the whole point of this podcast now is to actually go and find extraordinary people. So like extraordinary people, you know, like people who've achieved things that we sit there and go, how did they do that? Or God, you know, you look at someone and you go, wow, you've got some incredible discipline to be able to do that, and so on. So I've got the UK's champion, or he did hold the champion squat, no drugs, so complete clean, 285 kilos, for reps as well, not max. And I've got him coming on and talking about his journey. And that's, so like people like that, I know that I've got a few people, like trading people that I want to kind of get on, because there's a guy called Johnny Godfrey that I want to get onto the podcast because he's just created a whole business around his trading, and he's all money, but he's just a really genuine, like, just does what he loves and doesn't preach kind of guy. So he'd be a really cool person to have on. Colin Marshall is going to be another person who we had on before, and the cool thing about Colin is he has created his own business from nothing. So these are all people who have gone and they've just pursued their passions, and it's talking to them about their journey and what they've done, and then like they'll have like a top 5 books that they read and stuff. So
listening to the stories of the inspirational people around you and trying to put inspiration to others, kind of thing.
Yeah, but also to put on some realism. Like, so many people watch these people's like stories and they think, God, you know, like they worked hard all the time, or they did X, Y, and Z to get where they are. And you got like, there's some dark moments on your road to success. And I know for the champion lifter he got the nickname Thor. I wonder why. But he's got like proper bleach blonde hair, and he literally looks like what the cartoon characters back in the day would call Thor. So he's huge. But like he's got some great stories about how you get to a point and, you know, you get in your own head about things and you're like, there's a lot of darkness on the road to success, but when you get there, it's graceful and it's brilliant. So, but yeah, that's the whole, without rambling on too much about that, that's the whole concept around the Mindset Chronicles. And the first episode is coming out Sunday. I don't know if this podcast that you're doing right now is, when are you releasing this podcast? I should have.
I will be releasing this one. So as of recording today is Friday the 8th of May. I should be recording not Sunday coming, but Sunday afterwards.
Right. Okay.
Off the top of my head, I don't know what date that is.
Okay. So episode 1 is already out now for you listeners. It came out.
So go check out the Mindset Chronicles first episode. It is currently out as of listening to this. And also, whilst you're on the whole darkness on the road to success, I feel like that is a very, very good segue onto the topic that we are talking about today on the Another Movie Guy podcast. Darkness on the road to success is something that our little hobbits find themselves stumbling over in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So let's dive deep into this huge cinematic event. For you, what's your first memories of the Lord of the Rings going back to 2001 when the first film was released?
The adverts, like, believe it or not.
What, the TV spots kind of thing?
Yeah, so like the adverts that were on TV, and then you had these like plastic figurines that came out. They must have been McDonald's, like Happy Meal toys.
Oh my god, yeah, I remember those. I do remember those.
I had
a bunch of them.
Yeah, they were like squared off, and they were like,
it was like it was just a torso, wasn't it? It was just the top half of their body.
Yeah,
I remember those.
And that's what I can remember, like, vaguely. But the thing that, like, the reason I loved Lord of the Rings was obviously Legolas. Like, when you're that age, just you see some dude firing a bow at 100 mile an hour, you're like, whoa. And then you go in school and everyone says, like, all the girls are like, oh my god, Orlando Bloom's so hot with blonde hair. And then you're like, I mean, at that time, geez, 2001, I would have been 8 years old. So little 8-year-old Nick would have been like, well, to get all the ladies, I just have to fire a bow and arrow.
See, that's interesting because I was 6 when the first film came out, and I remember I was an absolute dinosaur nut when I was a kid. I loved the Jurassic Park franchise. I had everything I lived by was dinosaurs. And I remember very vividly, being upstairs in my bedroom playing with all my little dinosaur figurines and stuff. And my dad saying, come downstairs, we're all going to watch a film. Bearing in mind I'm 6 years old and my dad's like, we're going to watch The Lord of the Rings now and you're going to watch a shitload of orcs get slayed.
I was about to say, like, I wasn't allowed to watch the first Lord of the Rings by myself.
Oh, my parents didn't care. One of the first box sets my mum ever got me was Godzilla and Anaconda. But I remember watching this film.
Parenting.
I remember watching this film on that day, just on home video, and I remember sitting there with.
Oh, you had it on video.
Yeah, I think I was like, I was either had one of my little dinosaur figurines or I was drawing dinosaurs or something, and I watched this film, and afterwards I must have turned to my dad and just been like, I don't like dinosaurs anymore. I want all of the toys for the Lord of the Rings, please. And just since then, for me, it's been cemented in the back of my mind as one of the greatest things that I have ever seen. Right, so to this day.
Earliest memories, which is really cool. So it's obviously seeing all of those adverts that are on TV as I've watching TV. And then there was a huge hype around the first film that came out. Like, if you think back in 2001, these kind of films weren't made, you know, like that kind of
Well,
level
the Lord of the Rings is the most ambitious, in my opinion, I think it's the most ambitious film project of both its time and maybe of all time.
It's interesting as well because it was a time where they couldn't nail down actors for like X amount of films over however many years. So they said to them, okay, we can't keep you on contract for 10, 20 odd years to film these films. So we're just going to film the whole thing in one and then cut it up in post. Like...
Yeah, and I watched so much behind the scenes, and honestly, I don't know how Peter Jackson didn't have an aneurysm doing these
honestly,
films.
And also, like, people like Orlando Bloom, he's like a full-on, like, adrenaline junkie. So he was, like, jumping out of planes and, like, jumping out of helicopters. He like, I think he broke his ankle. He either broke or really badly twisted it. Bungee jumping.
Ah, well, we're gonna come back to that, actually, because that comes up later in your little question time, my friend.
Amazing. So I'm going to Google it now. No, I'm joking. I'm not.
But Orlando Bloom, funnily enough, whilst we're on topic of him, I think it was his first major role outside of film school.
Yeah, fully.
I think he got picked up
he was
straight away.
He was a little boy. Like, you look at, he was like filming with Viggo. Is it Viggo Mortensen? Is that his name? Can't believe I've even questioned that. But like, he's like filming with this guy and having to like act older than him because Legolas is obviously very much older than him.
7,000 years old.
I mean, I love the fact that we're going into this so naturally about just talking about the Lord of the Rings, but I've got to give a shout out to Mike Barton, right? Because, and there's a reason for this. Another one of my earliest ages, memories, is he was who we played the Lord of the Rings with. Like, and when you're a kid, you just get some sticks. You get some bows and arrows.
You have that friend group that you go around beating the shit out of each other, pretending you're in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, or you beat the shit out of just the air because there's no one else who wants to play with you because, understandably, you're nearly 10 years old playing Lord of the Rings in the street. So, but shout out to Mike Barton for he was always Aragorn. We didn't have a Gimli. Nobody wanted to be Gimli. Fuck that dude.
Nobody wanted to be Gimli, but as you get older, you kind of realise that Gimli's a bit of a fucking badass, man.
He's a geezer. He's also funny. Right, he was chatting up the bird in Rohan. He's there like chatting her up. He's on the horse. He's talking about like female dwarfs growing beards, sprout out of the ground, falls off the horse. She's laughing. She's like, yeah, I want a bit of him. All right,
just comedy gold, isn't it? So, do you own or have you read the books?
My mum owns the books. I have read one page of the very first book. I've read The Hobbit.
See, okay,
I read The Hobbit because it's like a children's book. If you can't read The Hobbit, then
The Hobbit was written as a children's book.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It is a children's book, so you should be able to read it. The Lord of the Rings. I tried reading that book when I was like 13, so like that was the problem. And back then, Nicky T didn't have the attention span he has today. Like, all I cared about when I was 13 is football and drumming. And even then, that was questionable on whether I could be bothered. So try getting me to read this like 100-year-old book when I could just watch the films. And the films were so much more exciting. Like, why would you read the book?
It depends, because obviously as a kid you care about the action and all that stuff, and I think the films are more of a manifestation of that side of the books that Tolkien didn't really. Tolkien loved characters and world building, so when it came to the battles in the books, there wasn't that much detail put into them. As I think Peter Jackson, when he got his hands on the rights, he said, we're going to make these epic scale battles that have never been done before, and since then haven't actually been replicated. Like Game of Thrones tried it. They did a good job, but they didn't capture that feel that the Lord of the Rings had, So that's a difference in the books. But did you know? Here's a fun fact that the Hobbit was obviously published as a children's book, and the Lord of the Rings was written as a sequel. There was high demand for a sequel, and it took Tolkien, I think, around 10 years to write the Lord of the Rings. At the time it was published in the 50s, it sparked this worldwide craze. Obviously, The Hobbit was its own entity, but The Lord of the Rings sparked a huge fan base. By the 1970s, The Lord of the Rings was voted the most read book in the world behind one other book. Can you tell me what book that is?
The Bible.
Yeah, it's the Bible. It is the fucking Bible.
I was literally there like, I thought for like 2 seconds, I was like, what books were they reading back then? And I was like, every motherfucker still read a Bible. Like, everyone still. I'm not going to make this a religious thing, but everyone read the fairy tale about the Bible. You know, like, that's just a thing that everyone's gone into. I don't know if this has completely like ruined your how to stay PC on a podcast.
No, you crack on. We're free speech here, free speech.
But no, like that's an incredible fact that you are bringing that. What 50s into the 70s? Was it the 50s that it was released?
Well, Tolkien, it was released in 50. I believe it was 53. I might be wrong. Someone's going to fact check me in the comments.
I thought it was older.
No, The Hobbit is, and Tolkien started writing these stories and started creating the Elvish language when he was in service in World War One. I think just before, actually, and he started writing these short stories whilst he was fighting in the First World War. But The Hobbit was published in the 40s, I believe. I'm not too sure. Maybe the 30s.
Okay, so for economic reasons, The Lord of the Rings was published in 3 volumes over the course of a year from 29th of July 1954 to the 20th of October 1955. The 3 titles were volumed The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. I swear, right, so that actually brings me on something that I was going to talk about. Didn't they change the movie name of the second film because of the because of 9/11?
I'm not too sure, you know.
I'm pretty sure
they were originally going to call it the Twin Towers for the movie.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe. I'm not too sure.
Or it was like the release date got pushed back. I'm actually, do you know what?
Actually, it came out in 2002, didn't it? And the 9/11 was 2001.
So it says here, Lord of the Rings: Two Towers almost didn't feature Sam's big speech, and I want to know why. The speech was actually a direct response to the 9/11 attacks. The first film was released in December of 2001, and The Two Towers proved unfortunately titled when it was released the following year.
Right,
so
okay.
The writers went back to the book, found J.R.R. Tolkien's beautiful words and added that to the scene. That is the part of what makes the speech so incredible. Of course, Samwise is speaking struggle of Middle-earth, but the words have resonance far beyond the fantasy world. In case you've forgotten, watch the speech below. So, like, this is the thing. I knew there was a controversy behind it. Fully knew there was a controversy behind it. I think they were telling him because I'm pretty certain it was Peter Jackson who was like, I'm not fucking changing the name of the title. It's in the books. Yeah. It's a book, like it's a story. It's not changing. Like it's not happening.
Well, it comes from the direct quote from Saruman in the film, doesn't it? He says the union of the two towers. That's where the name of the book and the film come from.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I think also Peter Jackson was like, you don't want to conform to terrorism. This is why I'm not changing it. But I knew there was a full blown debate about it, and it was because. You also had that like one little dickhead in class. Like, what would it be like? What I say, I was 8 years old. I remember there's one like proper knob was like, "I was being cancelled," and like then you got like those few people in the class who are like, "Oh what? Oh my god, no! I was looking forward to that film." And then you're like, "It's obviously not going to get cancelled." And he's like, "Yeah, it totally is because my dad works with someone who works on the set." And you're like, "Oh, I'm sure he fucking does."
Yeah.
And then like,
well, this took a weird turn. Like you brought something to this podcast that I didn't know, and this is good content.
I am the captain now. This is my podcast. You're just another movie guy. I'm the man. I'm just it's almost like you need me in your podcasts to sit on the computer, and then you could be like, can we get a fact check over there? And then I just feed it into you.
My guy in the chair, yeah.
Guy, Arnie Pie in the Sky. That guy. So, but no, yeah, it's
right.
Cool.
So obviously these films are widely loved, and I think we're establishing now that we are both huge fans of The Lord of the Rings. I want to know, for debate purposes, is there anything about the Lord of the Rings trilogy off the top of your head that you do not like?
Honestly, I'm trying to think. Like, I'm like scrolling through the movies in like fast forward at the moment. Um, I, d- I don't think there's anything like. I'm sure there is. I'm sure I'll watch it. It's like some parts are super fucking cheesy. Like, but I watched it the other day, and it's aged really well. Like,
Yes, it has. And
this is why I love the films, because they used genuine actors for the like orcs and the Uruk-hai, and then obviously they multiplied them with CGI. Because they used genuine actors, like it was, like everything still looks creepy and freaking good.
Yeah, because they're makeup artists, and the time spent on the practical effects for the orcs and the Uruk-hai, it's to this day, except for maybe the original Star Wars trilogy and the sequel trilogy where they brought the practical effects back for Star Wars, I don't think it's been done to that extent before. Like, to like if you saw one of those Uruk-hai in person, you'd be fucking terrified.
You'd
they
think
are
it was
insane.
real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's really funny to watch the behind the scenes and see them like sat down eating sandwiches for lunch. Like, he's got these like Uruk-hai. He's like, "How's your day been, Bob?" He's like, "Oh gosh, not too bad. I'm out on the flanks actually. I'd rather be in the middle." Like, oh, God, yeah, I know how you feel.
So going back to my original question, I can tell you something about the Lord of the Rings that this could spark some controversy.
Spark it.
So the one glaring problem with the not a problem with the films actually, because it's not a problem with the films, it's just it doesn't resonate with me, and it quite frankly bores me to death, is every single time there's a moment between Aragorn and Arwen.
Right, I knew you were going to say this.
Cannot stand that. It's not that I cannot stand that storyline, because it has its moments and it is necessary for the plot, but I find it so boring.
You just don't understand true love, Bobby. That's just what it is. Coming from the single dude in his studio. No, like I'm actually kind of with you. Okay, here's the glaring problem with The Lord of the Rings. Every time the battle starts getting fucking like intense, they then dwindle it down to something really, and like it's the dynamic, it's creating a dynamic in the film, which is fine. Like, I do very much understand. It's like you do it with music. You can't have everything at 11 the whole time. But I want it at 11 the whole time. I want to see the fight, and I want to see it.
The one that stands out for me is when I think it's the Two Towers, there's a bit where all the Uruk-hai are coming up. I think they're coming up the causeway, and there's a big pan out to the entire battlefield. Oh no, it's after the Uruk-hai he blows up the wall, and all the shards of concrete come flying down. The Uruk-hai go pouring through, the elves charge, and then it cuts to Treebeard having a chat with the rest of the Ents.
Right, that is the exact moment I'm talking about. That is it. Like, and you know what? I feel like movie people have fixed that since, because like you watch like something in the Avengers, any kind of form of battle, and it doesn't just like cut to Samuel L. Jackson like, "We got an update? No? Oh, okay. Cool." Like that's not like that's pretty much what he does. Like, you got all these Uruk-hai, like you said, breaking through. Everyone's fighting. It's like, "Rah!" And then literally out of nowhere, Treebeard's like, "We take long time to talk." Shut the fuck up! Just fucking get back to the action. What the hell? Oh my God. I don't need that in my life. I don't need that dude fucking talk. I have to listen to a history teacher. I don't want to listen to that in a movie that I like. What's going on?
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
No, I think it adds to the rewatchability of it all, though, to be honest. Because the Two Towers, for me, I never get bored of that battle because of those little breaks. As much as it annoys me and I want to see all the elves getting absolutely hammered by the Uruk-hai, it does break it up.
The Arwen thing with Aragorn is like, it's a weird one because I'm with you, but I also think that's because I'm like, yeah, blah, blah, you fucking love each other, like, you can't see each other, wow, like, oh no, you're gonna die before she does, oh, well, that's what you get for fucking an elf, like, at least you're gonna have beautiful children, because, you know, she's well fit, and her dad really isn't, and even, like, they kind of got, like, they might as well have had Steve Tyler as Elrond, like, I mean, who's the dude who plays Elrond? What's his name?
Hugo Weaving.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, he's Agent Smith in The Matrix.
Yeah, obviously, he's literally like he's fucking Redface in like the Avengers as well.
He is. He's Red Skull, isn't he?
Yeah, that's it. Like he's got to be like one of the best actors as a villain, but he kind of is like Steve Tyler's better looking brother. You know? Anyone else? Anyone else seeing that resemblance, or is that just me?
Is there like a Arwen's Uncle Steve up in the Misty Mountains somewhere, and he's just some crackpot elf? So yeah, I think the whole Arwen thing. The reason that plot line kind of bugs me watching the films now is because the films are very, very long, and those scenes are all dragged out slow-mo, very pretty, all the music. And,
the music is so good.
Absolutely, and we will come to the music, but
now that we're
those
older,
scenes,
that we're older, you got to appreciate it. You got to appreciate the music, man. And you got to appreciate the filming.
Absolutely, but what I'm saying is the first time you watch those scenes, it's critical to the plot, but when you watch it over and over again,
well, then
you're like, oh.
No, then that you've just devalued your point because you've just said that it's critical for the plot.
Oh yeah, so absolutely. But what I'm saying is it just bores me watching it again, and for me that takes it down by like 0.001%.
Well, then it's a moot fact. You're trying to pick holes in.
I am
It's
trying.
like
I'm trying to pick holes in a perfect diamond because I want to debate.
If you want to do that, okay, I'm gonna segue this for you then. If you want to debate about picking holes in the Lord of the Rings or anything to do with the Lord of the Rings, then we should really be talking about The Hobbit.
Yes, let's go. All right, okay, so building up to this podcast, I watched, in this order as well, I watched The Battle of the Five Armies and then An Unexpected Journey. I didn't watch Desolation of Smaug, because that's the one I remembered the most. I sat down and I thought, do you know what? I'm doing this podcast. I need to talk about The Hobbit a little bit. I can't remember The Battle of the Five Armies, and I haven't seen the first one in a long time. So I sat down, watched The Battle of the Five Armies, and then I watched the first one, and then I couldn't be bothered to rent the second one, and I was like, I can remember this anyway. But I'm going to let you start this conversation about the Hobbit trilogy.
Right, so the first Hobbit is... I haven't watched it since I watched it in the cinema when it came out. It was that boring. Like, I went to go see it with my mate Ben, and we were sat there watching it, and we were like, fucking, there's going to be a dragon. And you know, when you're like looking at each other like, oh, they're near the dragon. Oh, here we go. And then there's that one bit like where there's like all the trolls, and they're really funny, and then they like get stoned. And you're like, oh,
the trolls get stoned.
Here we go. Yeah, they get stoned by the sun, don't
you heard it here first. The trolls get stoned in the morning sun.
Oh, that's amazing, right? So it's just like going out of Fairham. Literally.
Oh wow.
You're then like, oh, here comes the dragon. Here it comes. No fucking dragon. Are you kidding me? Why the fuck did I pay £13 for a cinema ticket? And, you know, £26 for some popcorn.
And even then, the first film ends on that cliffhanger where you see the dragon's eye in the gold.
That's my point.
You don't see the dragon until 2/3 through the second film. And that's what leads me on to my criticism of these films, which is they are just wholly unnecessary in a trilogy format.
Right, I agree with you. But there was a lot right, it's weird because I get why he said it out the way he did, and buckle down. The CGI is so good. It's so good.
I agree with you, but I don't agree with
it's too... Wait. It's too good. It's not scrappy enough. Like... It's so good that it's shiny. Like, you then watch The Lord of the Rings and you're like, wow, I just watched a PlayStation game. Like, it's too good. There's no realism in it. And, like, that's hilarious talking about a mythical land. But when you watch The Lord of the Rings, like we said, everyone's fucking real. Yeah, but it's terrifying.
They are in a mythical land. They're in fucking New Zealand, bro.
But this is what I'm saying. You know, like, in The Lord of the Rings, you can still put yourself there and be like, wow, that looks real, because it is real, because, like, an Uruk-hai, his face was made, be it from like plasticine or whatever the fuck they make it with. But then you look at like The Hobbit and like the fucking bull-chin guy that Stephen Fry plays, the, like Goblin King, with his like bollocks swinging below his chin, and he's like he's like got a shiny outer coat to him, and he's like, it's almost like auto-tune.
Yeah.
It's like you know when you can hear, if you've done music production to any form or you're in a band, you can hear auto-tune and you go, wow, their voice sounds incredible. Yeah, because it sparkles, because it's been completely like rendered this like sparkly nice layer of Mr. Sheen over the top of it, and that's literally what the CGI is like in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Now, storyline, I think Peter Jackson did a good job, because the joke is here with The Hobbit, Tariel, who is played by one of the best looking women in the world, is actually Evangeline Lilly. God, I knew that too quickly. She also plays the Wasp and is most famously known for Kate in the hit series that everyone got pissed off about, Lost.
I can sense a crush.
But yeah, so she was an add-in character. She's not in The Hobbit.
No.
And it's because Pietro Jackson was like, yo, we need some loving going on with this like love triangle between Legolas and his dad. Now, this brings me on to hated points. The like driven demon kind of hatred between Legolas and his dad for the love of a girl is just completely fucking pointless when you watch The Lord of the Rings. And he doesn't look like, you know, like when he sees like Aragorn yearning for Arwen, he's not like, bro, yeah, been there. Like, he's just like, wow, wonder what that's like. Yeah. And then I think in The Hobbit, he's like, Father, do not talk about her like that or I will kill myself as well. And it's like,
yeah, but they kind of touch on this, like, if they made, because they touched on it in the films where Thranduil he's very secluded and he doesn't care about anyone but his kin, and he doesn't care who dies as long as he spares the lives of the Mirkwood elves. And I feel like Legolas being the more like wants to help the other people of Middle-earth, that's the rift between them that they could have built on, but they didn't. They just went for this cliche Hollywood storyline, and the fact that they brought Legolas into the films anyway was just to sell tickets, because he's not even in The Hobbit.
Oh, but he's so good.
He is, but he looks so weird in these films as well.
Yeah, but that's because he's old. Like, he's like in his 30s or 40s or whatever Orlando Bloom is. So like compared to the films where, like we said earlier, he was like a teenager, like he's got that natural aged chin where it's like you don't look fat, but your body's kind of letting itself go a little because of age, and it's not a bad thing. No. That's just age. Yeah. But that's why it's really funny to be like, oh look, he's younger but he's older, and he's not what he looks like in the Lord of the Rings when he's meant to be older. But wow, he either really hit a gym or stopped eating that Cadbury's, or he, you know. Maybe he got locked in quarantine. Maybe Mirkwood locked him away. Maybe that's what, you know, how he managed to like lose all the weight. But the thing is, he's so badass in the second film when he's like doing all those freaking, again, bow and arrow stunts, and he's down the river and he's like jumping on the dwarfs' heads, and like it's badass. And Tariel as a character, she's badass, and Evangeline Lilly plays her really well, and that's probably the hottest that she ever has been is when she's playing Tariel. And then like she has this like little love thing with Feely. Is it Feely? Or is it Keely?
Keely.
Oh, you should know this. This is your fucking podcast.
It's Keely. I don't know. They're very highly forgettable characters.
Oh my god. So like that's the thing, like, you know, they have this little thing, and that's fine until like he dies, and then Thranduil's like suddenly grown a heart.
Yeah, it just comes out of nowhere.
It's because you have true love, and this is why you feel this hurt. It hurts so much. Do you know what also hurts? It hurts when you get a fucking poison arrow in your leg, right? And that's what that little dwarf man had, and then he got thrown off a fucking cliff, right? Or I think he gets stabbed. But yeah.
Whilst we're on the subject of Thranduil, I remembered from the cinema there's a moment at the end of the film where there was a little bit of fan service where Thranduil tells Legolas to go find Aragorn. But when I watched it again the other day, it is painfully structured. He literally says it's in a brief moment. He turns to Legolas and he goes, "Oh, by the way, your mum did love you, you know." Also, there's this guy, Dunedain. He's up north. You should go find him. His name's Aragorn. It might be important later down the line, but I guess we'll find out later.
This is the thing. Also, why is Thranduil set out to look like Eugene Levy, the dude who's in American Pie? You know, the dad, the dad of Jim. Just in case anyone doesn't know, what's with the fucking eyebrows? Like, can we just can we address this right now? Like, that dude bleaches his hair. How many L'Oreal packets do you reckon he has delivered to Mirkwood? Like, and also, here's my point. Like, if his hair is looking like that's not fucking natural. Don't bullshit. It's that natural. Look at your fucking eyebrows, mate. You are not a natural blonde.
Yeah.
So, and you know, he's a bit. I'm not surprised his wife left him, or you know, like whatever. Or
she didn't leave. She died.
She should have left him. Like this guy, he's like, these dwarfs have taken, and I don't know why he's European, but this is just how I'm going with it. All right, this is Thranduil. The dwarfs have taken our precious jewels that are owed to us from years ago. Yeah. Okay, well, look, mate, your wife died, or she left you, or whatever. It's probably because of those eyebrows, and you're a bit of a like, it's not, you're just a bit of a, oh my God, my precious jewels, and we can only help people of Mirkwood. You've got a fucked up forest that the elves are kind of okay with it, but then these guys are coming in and it's like they've done acid, and then he's like, but we must make sure everybody's okay, and he's like, but I will help you fight for these jewels. Like, what is your, like, mate, you are the most contradicting like guy ever. And then like halfway through a battle he kills someone, looks around in this like stunned daze, and then he's like, we must leave. There is too much blood. Like, what did you expect? Did you sit there like, we're going to march in, we're going to say, move aside, dwarfs, and we're going to take our jewels and return with maybe one death, and even then that is too much. And he's like fucking people up. He's got a moose. He's fucking beheaded all of them.
His moose. The meat.
Everyone's like, the fucking mace, I knew they were real. They're in Sweden the whole time, that's what it is. And like, then he's there like, oh my God, he's getting into the battle. Then fucking Billy Connolly turns up and is head-butting dwarfs out of the way. Like, right, if there's any golden moment, it's when he's shouting, where is Thorin?
And
he just headbutts 6 different oh God, what a moment. Billy Connolly makes that third
also,
film.
It's a shame that he couldn't film, could he? He just did the voice work in the end because he was too ill to actually do the shoot, so they CG'd him. But it doesn't actually look that bad. It's kind of that Beowulf kind of look. But I think it's passable.
There's quite a lot of characters, and there's quite it is almost hits like on the childish kind of charm of the film. Like the dwarfs have this kind of like childish charm.
I do agree that you have to look at the Hobbit films with a more relaxed point of view than you would with the Lord of the Rings. I think that's what they were going for. So I want to quickly move back onto the Lord of the Rings before we talk some behind the scenes stuff and get onto this quiz section. But firstly, there's a couple of characters in The Hobbit that I want to talk about, but I want to talk about them real quick right now. So I want one sentence from you to describe these characters as I reel them off to you from the Hobbit trilogy. Are you ready?
If you don't have one of these characters in here, I'm going to talk about him. Just because you asked me before this phone call to talk about my most hated characters.
Okay.
And I have one from the Hobbit trilogy that just...
So do I.
Just, oh, God.
I'm hoping it's the same character.
There's two moments. There's two moments in the Hobbit as well. There's one which we didn't talk about, and it involves a gold floor. And I'm just like, oh my God, get on.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm just going to talk about that. Before you do the whole character thing, like, what the fuck, man? Like, this is your Arwen bit in, like, Lord of the Rings. Oh my God, boo-hoo, I haven't got any, I've got too much gold and I've got some sickness. Get on with it. We're talking about a fucking battle out there, and I get it. It's like the whole frustration of go on and fight. But then he just randomly turns up and he's like, I have treated you all bad. Let's go fight.
I'm gonna bring him up last because I feel like I know where this is going. But first off, obviously a couple of these characters are in the Lord of the Rings, but I want to know what you think of them in the Hobbit trilogy. So we'll start off with Gandalf.
Geezer.
I think in The Hobbit, Gandalf is amazing. He's such a trickster, and he's more of a fiendish little prick, and I love it.
Yeah, but also he does the usual thing where he takes someone on a journey, like gets that weird sixth sense that the wizards do, and then goes, I must leave you. And then they're like, they're like, what? And he's like, I have to go. And then he just fucking leaves, saves Middle-earth by himself. And like in The Hobbit, he has like way more magic. So you see him as like a genuine wizard. So you're like, the whole thing in like the Lord of the Rings as well about Gandalf, you're like, why don't you just turn everyone into frogs? Like, why?
My theory is that Gandalf's too stoned throughout the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, see, that's not a bad theory. And also at the very, very end of the trilogy, when he's playing with his pipe after Thorin is like dead.
That's
like,
such a great
it's
moment.
one of the funniest movie moments. Like, you got Martin Freeman, he's like dangling his legs. He's like, God damn, the king is dead. What a guy. We went through so much. And then Gandalf's like, God damn fucking pipe, I need to get...
Yeah, I love it. I do love that moment. Actually, that's a good way to move on to Bilbo. Martin Freeman's Bilbo. What do you think?
He's one of the best characters.
Absolutely.
And Martin Freeman kills it. No one else is Bilbo.
Yeah.
To the point where Martin Freeman has been in a lot. And he's been in a lot of films and programs. He's done BBC stuff. Like, he's a very, very well-respected actor. And after I watched that, I was just like... Well, he is Bilbo.
Yeah, he smashes it. He's
and then
so
you watch
good.
him in anything else. He's done the Daniel Radcliffe thing. Like Daniel Radcliffe is Harry Potter. No matter what he goes into, it's Harry Potter, right? So literally, Bilbo is now. He like Martin Freeman's done everything and done far more than what Daniel Radcliffe's obviously done. Like, obviously people look at Daniel Radcliffe and go, oh, you're Harry Potter, because he's only really done Harry Potter, and he's done like some other things, but everyone still knows him as that. Martin Freeman, for me, has done like way more before and way more after, but for me, he's now, because his role as Bilbo was so good, I'm like, he's Bilbo.
Yeah,
do you see what I mean by that?
Yeah, and every time he's on screen, I'm not bored, And there's the moment between Bilbo and who my next person I wanted to talk to you about was, dragon, Smaug. That whole interaction between Bilbo and Smaug is the best part of that trilogy for me. Benedict Cumberbatch as Smaug and Martin Freeman's Bilbo, they have such a chemistry with each other. And the way it's all done, the way the visuals are done for Smaug, honestly, I could watch that part of the trilogy over everything else and be satisfied. I don't need the rest of it. I just need that.
That's
a short film.
It's incredible to see what Benedict Cumberbatch does behind the scenes to actually get in the mindset and the body of a dragon. Like,
he took a lot of inspiration from Andy Serkis as Gollum, didn't he? They did the same kind of motion capture. And
you see him like rubbing his belly on the floor and then like arching up, and like he proper envisions how his body would be. You almost watch him and be like, fuck yeah, you are a dragon.
Yeah,
like,
he's great.
What the hell?
And just Smaug.
He's an incredible actor.
Smaug as a character is really good as well. I just like... when you like to do villains in films, it's difficult because when you've got something like the Avengers and Thanos, they did him so well because he's you can relate and you can sympathize, but doing a character that is just evil is difficult to pull off. Sauron and Smaug especially are really good at that because Smaug's a fucking dragon and he just wants to burn everything and sleep in gold. That's his character motivation. That is literally it. So he can be the most evil he wants to be.
Oh, that's the dream, isn't it?
It is the dream. To sleep in gold and be a dickhead and burn people.
God, that's brutal. For the record, I do not think like that. Anyway, carry on.
Absolutely not. So before we get on to the last character, I want one word for this one. Azog the Defiler. Mine is chump. He's just a bit useless, isn't he?
He's White Beast, isn't he?
Yeah, the White Orc, the pale
stick
orc.
in his arm. Right, he's well funny because he's like this fearful, threatening, giant, leading orc. And then he's like, there's that part in the film where he goes and he addresses Sauron. And he's like, you see him walking down the like long path in the knockoff Osgiliath place.
Yeah.
And he's like walking down, and he's almost like that fat kid who always gets bullied. So he like goes to the meanest person he knows, and he's like, I'll do anything for you just to be accepted. And then like it's actually quite a sad story. And then like he goes and he tries his hardest and he still dies. Like that's who he is.
Yeah.
He's literally like you're like, wow, he's a real fearful. Oh, hang on a minute. No, he's just some petty little orc who's got a bit of a stick up his arse about, he's got a complex. He's got a small dick complex going on right now. And then also his lanky mate, who's got like, can we just talk about Lanky Mate's armor that's like drilled into his body?
Yeah, that guy, the one that Legolas, he shanks him in the head, doesn't he? In the third one.
Yeah, like that's a great fight. Like, and he's actually a great evil character because he looks disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, he looks just gross. And like I'm saying, like the armor plating that's like drilled into his body, you're like, well, bro, you'd be bleeding a lot more. Like, what's going on? Like, how? That's not a thing. Like, you'd be struggling to move. You'd be in pain consistently. Maybe that's why he's such an arsehole. But he's literally, it's Borg. That's what we call him. Because there's the bit where Whitey gets like told off by Sauron, and then freaking he turns around and he's like, Borg! Like, and this like lanky motherfucker walks towards him, and then in the like broken Elvish, he's like, you must go find the elves. Like, and he's like, and they do that weird like smile thing. I hate that in movies when the villains like
the evil smile.
They're like real serious, and then they're like, you must go find the elves, and then they just look at the camera, just pans to them, and then they fucking smile, and then it cuts to the next scene. Oh, fuck off! They wouldn't be saying that. They wouldn't be fucking smiling, would he? He'd be like,
I just want to capitalize on this rage that you've got going on right now, and I'm gonna bring us there. Let's talk about Thorin Oakenshield.
Thorin Oakenshield is one of the dumbest heroes ever.
I cannot stand him as a character.
He's put in The Hobbit because he just wasn't good enough for the Lord of the Rings. That's why he dies. You know, like, and obviously he, like, the books are well written before. I get it, well done, but he's just a bit of a knob.
I just find him insufferable. I don't know if it's the way, I believe it's Richard Armitage that plays him. I don't know if it's the way he's portrayed or just a character in general, but I cannot stand him. Every time he talks, it annoys me.
I think the acting is perfect. Like, genuinely. Like, if you actually look at it, the acting is very, very well done. He has captured that dude from the moment they leave to the moment he has his little gold meltdown, and he's like, I'm melting in the floor, like some Wizard of Oz piece of shit. Like, he's just such a selfish prick. Like, he's so entitled, and he gets more entitled the closer he gets to the fucking wall. Like, especially when they're at the wall and they've got the key and they're like waiting for the last sunlight of Durin's Day, and then he's like, find the door. Like, he like properly, like, he becomes some like scrawny little kid. Like, we will not rest until we find it. And then Bilbo's like, mate, there's a keyhole here. Like,
calm down, dude. Calm down. Yeah.
You can't, like, stop having a squinny.
I do
put
not
your
like
fucking Pampers on. Like, and then obviously when he's in there and he's like, yeah, we will fight everyone, and everyone's like, yeah, we will fight, and then literally he's like, stand down, we will not leave, and then they're like, yeah, what? And then like all the other dwarfs who are, and obviously like, can we talk about how amazing Balin is?
Oh, I love Balin.
Absolute. Do you know why? Because he's like that really nice uncle who you don't get to see a lot. He's not a nonce. He's just a really nice guy. And you're just like, God, you're such a nice dude. Or if you're feeling a little bit upset about something, he's like, you know, life's actually not all bad. And then you're like, God damn.
I think it's the only thing.
To say at the right time.
The only thing that the Hobbit trilogy actually gives weight to the Lord of the Rings is, you know, when they go to Moria in the first Lord of the Rings film and they find Balin's tomb, and you're like, Balin's dead, dude. Like, I really liked that character from The Hobbit. That's the only time I watch the Lord of the Rings and I go, oh, that's something from The Hobbit that made this film better. I've
got to say though, the Hobbit character. So if we're looking at like the dwarfs in The Hobbit, the dude who's like got a skinhead.
Is it Dwalin? I think it's Balin's brother, Dwalin.
He's literally that hard one. Like, you wouldn't fuck with him. It's that part where he goes up to Thorin and he's like in tears and he's like, I would have followed you anyway. And then that makes you think, oh, right, you've made the hard cunt cry. You are definitely being an asshole. Like, that's when you're like, Thorin, you are some sort of fucking little bitch. God, sorry. Every time I see him on the screen, I'm like, oh, this guy.
I think that perfectly sums up the Hobbit trilogy, you know?
Yeah, there's some great bits. Like, there are some great bits, but as a whole, they're not.
All right, so let's move back to Lord of the Rings. I want to talk about the production side of it and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. I got some little facts. I've done my research. I've got some little facts and little figures here that you might be interested in. The first one's to do with a lot of money, so you're going to really like this one. So
I am smart.
The Lord of the Rings was made... Actually, can you guess the budget of the Lord of the Rings project? Like, the three films as a whole, how much do you reckon they were made for, without using Google?
Oh, I can't... I knew this. It's around I want to say I'm going to underestimate this now, but that's only because I know that movie budgets have gone up. 30 mil?
Way more. 300 million for the three films was their budget, and they grossed 3 billion at the box office.
Yeah, I knew they did. I know they did in the bills with the gross. Yeah, see, I didn't realize that they were doing. That's why it was such a like what the fuck, because they didn't spend that money on films. Like, not the hundreds of millions.
Similar to James Cameron's Avatar, where it was the most expensive film project of its time. The Lord of the Rings was similar. But the one thing I did find in some research, which I think you'd be interested in, was originally the films were going to be funded and produced by Miramax. When Peter Jackson went to the pitch meeting, they gave him the budget for one film, and they went back, sat on it, and Peter Jackson thought, there is no way you can do justice to the Lord of the Rings trilogy of books in one film. So he refused and said that he'd go look around to other studios and other companies. Eventually they came to New Line Cinema, and they pitched two films to New Line Cinema. And at the end of their pitch meeting, New Line said, we're not going to give you two films out of this. And they were sort of like, oh shit, like, what are we supposed to do from here? And New Line said, this is three films. It has to be three films. Which is a no-brainer, really. It's three books, but I really like that little fact. It's quite wholesome, and I don't think you get that from studios much these days. But they insisted that it be made into three films and gave them a budget of 300 million as opposed to 150 million.
Well, I mean, their risk paid off.
Absolutely.
Dramatically.
They're done. They're done for life, mate. So... Another fact that I found quite interesting was looking into the differences with the books and the films. The first film in the Lord of the Rings trilogy focuses more on the tension and the urgency of the quest, taking place over a few weeks. But did you know the book, The Fellowship of the Ring, takes place over 20 years?
Oh my god.
So the bit where Gandalf leaves Frodo at the beginning of the Fellowship to go to Minas Tirith to do all of his research on the ring because he has a suspicion that it's a very bad piece of jewellery. That bit, he leaves for like 15 years, something like that. And then the rest of the quest is about 5 years over the period of the books. And
you got some, you got some kids who are doing their dissertation and they have to sit down for 3 months and study. And they're like, oh my...
Yeah, I know, right?
They're like, oh my God, deep studying for 3 months has been so hard. I'm going to go snort some cocaine to deal with it. Oh my God.
But also, props to Frodo, man, for keeping that ring in a envelope for 15 years. That's fair, impressive. That's some self-restraint.
I mean, if they're simple folk. They don't really give a shit. He's like, yo, this ring needs to stay in this envelope, and you keep it hidden, keep it safe. He's like, all right, well, I'm not allowed to touch it, so I'm going to bang it in this chest. Because, he bangs it in, it's like at the bottom of a chest somewhere. Like, he like moves maps and, like things that he would use recently. And he just kind of bangs it there, and he's just like, all right, I'll just carry on doing some reading by a tree. Might go down and do some fishing. Go have a beer with Sam, and then Sam's chatting up that So does that mean that Sam's been chatting up that Rosie bird for 15 years?
Yeah, the slowest graph of all time. But he does land her. He does land her, and it's well deserved.
And that's after then 20... Well, I mean, he's a hero at that point. She'd be dumb if she didn't go, oh, all right, love, I single-handedly picked up Frodo, walked him up the mountain, all right, and he dropped the ring into the Mordor. I fucking saved Middle-earth.
I killed a giant spider.
Who would... Yeah, exactly.
That happened. It was me.
He'd be like, I don't want to take the credit here, guys, but it was all me. But that's what she
right,
used to do.
So, did you know Peter Jackson has a cameo in all three Lord of the Rings films?
No. Where?
So, in the first one, I believe they go to the village of Bree, and he's just some dude eating a carrot in the street. In the second film, I think you might actually remember this because I know you know the second film well. There's a moment where a really enthusiastic man of Rohan throws a spear and makes this weird like noise as he does it. That's Peter Jackson.
And it's like chainmail falls over his face.
Yeah. He's got all the chainmail on. Yeah, that's Peter Jackson. And in the third one, it's actually in the extended edition where
I've only watched
the pirate ships so you know the bit where the pirate ships are sailing past the mountain and Legolas, Aragorn and Gimli have just acquired the army of the dead, and Legolas fires an arrow and it hits one of the pirates and he again does a very over enthusiastic death. That's Peter Jackson.
Amazing.
So yeah, that's a fun fact. Also, this is something I found out in my research. Stuart Townsend, an actor who I only know from the terrible League of Extraordinary Gentlemen film, was originally cast as Aragorn. And he did 4 days of shooting, but Peter Jackson quickly realised that he was too young for the role, so fired him and replaced him with Viggo Mortensen.
Wow.
How gutted must that dude be?
Yeah, that guy's got to stick up his ass. That guy has got...
Yeah.
You ever watch Lilo and Stitch, right? You know, Lilo's got those like voodoo dolls, and he's like, my friends need to be punished. That's
Do you reckon he's bought the hot toy Aragorn figurine and he's using it as a voodoo doll?
Yep. He's got Peter Jackson and he's like created some like cuddly toy and he's put him in a gherkins thing with a load of other spoons. And he just looks round at his wife. And he's like, he needs to be punished. That's the thing.
Okay, here's a fun one. Here's a fun one for you. So Sean Bean, Boromir, he hated that they had to fly helicopters to the top of the mountains to do all the shoots in the Fellowship on the the path of something, the big snow mountain.
Yeah.
Sean Bean would get up 3 hours before everybody else. He would get into his makeup and hair and all of that. He would then climb the mountain for 2 hours to get to set. As all the others flew past him in helicopters because he was so afraid of heights and flying in the helicopters. I'm
not gonna lie, I respect that.
Yeah, dude, I love that. I think that's great. But there's a moment in the first film's special edition behind the scenes features where Peter Jackson is literally like crying with laughter, talking about how he used to see they used to fly past just Sean Bean in Boromir outfit, all of his armour and his shield and stuff, just climbing up a mountain using the ski lifts.
Amazing. That is actually amazing.
Last little factoid for you before we move on. The troll that Aragorn fights at the end of Return of the King at the Battle of the Black Gate.
Yes.
Did you know that was originally supposed to be Sauron?
Yes, I do know this, but...
And he was supposed to metamorphosize in front of Aragorn and then fight him, and it was supposed to be this epic clash, but I think Peter Jackson quickly realised that it didn't make that much sense and would have kind of made it a little bit redundant that Frodo even had to get rid of the ring.
Yeah, it would have been super G-H-E-Y. Gay. It would have just been just lame. They would have just not been great, you know. Yeah. It would have.
I like that it's a troll as well. It kind of gives that grounded feel. I like it.
Can we talk about before you go on to your next question? Can we talk about something that I'm sure many listeners have gotten to this point and wondered when we would actually fucking bring it up?
Go for it.
The Eagles. And I'm not talking about the great rock band. I'm talking about the fucking dudes. The dudes who are literally just like too proud to do anything. But then Gandalf's like, yo, bro, even your home's going to die. And then they're like,
I guess we should do something about it, you know.
Let's go do a quick aerial assault. And then as they're going over, they're like, oh, isn't that Specky kid who took the ring? And he's like, fair play.
I like that they kind of refrain with the whole Eagles plotline until Return of the King, really. I mean, there's the moment in the Fellowship where the Eagles help Gandalf. But it's not like in The Hobbit where the Eagles literally pick them up off the side of a mountain and then drop them halfway to the mountain. They could have just taken them the whole way, but whatever.
Yeah, like, and it's even funnier. The thing with I love the one in the first film with that music, and then this moth just turns up, and he's like, literally out of nowhere. Then a fucking eagle turns up. Like, how that's mystical. He's a wizard. That's meant to happen. But then, did he run out of moths? Is there like a little? Is there a mini war that we just didn't know about? Like, you think in World War II they were shooting down pigeons to stop messages going across. Is there just some like mini war that we didn't know about? Was there like
orcs shooting moths out of the skies?
Was there like dragonflies? Dragonflies just attacking these moths? And this moth's like, what?
Warbred dragonfly.
Mayday, mayday, mayday.
It's probably Saruman's ravens, isn't it? That big cloud of ravens. They're just all nomming down on the moths that are flying around.
There you go. He's like, you must get those fucking moths.
All right, so let's move on. I want to talk about this Amazon TV series that's coming out. Do you know much about this?
See, I've refrained from looking into it until the first episode goes because I don't want to know. I don't want to know until I see the first episode. Sorry, I'm a full-blown weirdo. Like, if there's something new coming out, I don't want to know anything. And then when I sit down and watch it, I've got this just complete first time punch in the face kind of like view about things, which is why if there's ever something I want to watch, I just don't talk about it if there's something I want to watch, because we have certain friends, and I don't know if one certain friend will even get this far into the podcast.
He won't, but
I'm talking about you, Toby Young. Fucking talking about you. When I was watching The Sons of Anarchy, and I was like, yeah, watching all these things, and I was, God, I'm loving it. And he was like, oh, you're watching Sons of Anarchy? I said, yeah, man, it's really good. And he was like, yeah, have you gotten to the bit where this happens? And I was like, that is a crucial spoiler in that series. Why would you say that? He was like,
I remember how mad
he was like, he was like, sorry, fam. He was like, oh, yeah, but that I'm sure that happens after this. And I'm like, no, I didn't know that either. And he was like, oh, well, you know them now, so you might. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, so that's why from that memory of that, I don't talk to anybody just in case they ruin something for me. So no, if you have any facts about it and you want to talk to your listeners about the new program that's coming out, you can politely piss off until the end of this podcast.
Well, no, actually, the Amazon series is actually really, really ambiguous at the moment. There is absolutely nothing online. I did so much research. There is nothing online about the actual show itself, plot-wise, anything like that. I don't even think they've released any actors yet. But what I do want to talk about is what you want to see out of it.
Again, I don't know. I don't know where it's set. I don't know what's going on.
I think it's a prequel. I think it's a prequel set thousands of years before The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. So I think it's got nothing to do with the two film trilogies.
I think it's similar to... Did you ever play The Third Age?
I did.
What? Right. What? Here's a quick one. Just little... I know we're digressing. What did you think about that gaming program? What did you think about that game?
I thought it was okay, but I think when I played it, I wasn't really into that kind of game, and I was just coming off of the back of the Two Towers and the Return of the King video game adaptations of the films, which were insanely good. Yeah, I liked The Third Age. The Third Age was good. It was fun. You think that's the kind of thing they're going to go for with this series? Yeah,
where it'll be like some random character with a random storyline. That's because the thing I liked about The Third Age was it had a very good storyline. And it made sense, like it fit in with everything, like it didn't miss anything. And like, it's also like if you go to the newer games that we got out now, like Shadow of Mordor, is it Shadow of Mordor? Is that
There's Shadow of Mordor, the first one, and then there's Shadow of War, which was the second one.
So I haven't played Shadow of War, but Shadow of Mordor was a really, really good plot, and it was actually a really good game.
I played a lot of that in the van on tour.
See, the thing is, it's so good because... The Lord of the Rings is so good because you can do anything and get away with it as long as you tie it back to the original story. Because nothing's too far-fetched. Because we're talking about some little dudes who took a fucking ring into a mountain to save the world. So, like, after that, it doesn't really fucking matter what you talk about because you're not really... Like, that's pretty... Like, imagine someone from, like, Whiteley having to take a ring to Liverpool.
But there's a lot of Scousers in the way, and they're all trying to kill him.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's like a tower in London, and then there's one in like Birmingham, And like, you got to go across all this weird terrain, maybe through Wales, through a few mountains. You know, it gets a little bit far-fetched when you start talking like that. So I don't think they can really go wrong as long as they just make it a good storyline and they reference, you know, I would want them to do something in the lead up to the fuck off battle that happened over the ring in the first place.
Well, I do think that's probably what they're going to do, because they have stated that it's set before the two trilogies and that it's set in the Second Age. Obviously, the events of I believe The Hobbit and definitely The Lord of the Rings are set in the Second Age.
They are Third Age.
Third Age, sorry, yeah. So maybe it will come to that. But did you know they've already got 5 confirmed seasons, and they got a budget of $1 billion. 250 million was spent just on acquiring the rights and that big fuck off war Amazon had with Netflix to acquire it. $750 million are set aside to produce all 5 confirmed seasons. So it's promising, but that's all we really know at the moment. They're keeping it very quiet.
Do we know who's directing it?
No idea. I'm not sure it's confirmed yet.
I don't think it'll be a bad. Like, I don't think when that kind of money is on the line, they don't go in with someone half-assed, you know?
No, and Amazon have got some good series out there. Like, have you watched Vikings?
No, yeah. So like, I watched a few episodes, but I haven't watched it like fully. That is
Vikings is very good.
Ridiculously good series.
Yeah,
very,
I love
good.
Vikings.
Jack Ryan's an Amazon one as well, isn't it?
I am yet to watch that. That's the one with John Krasinski, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm yet to watch that as well, but I know for a fact that's a very, very good one. I've seen many reviews.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping it's going to be good, and maybe me and you will watch it together like the days of old when we watched The Walking Dead before it got really, really bad.
Honestly, don't get me onto that subject. Otherwise, we'll be here for another fucking 2 hours.
Yeah, that might be a separate podcast, maybe a special edition Walking Dead episode. Right? Do you hear that? In the distance, I can hear the drums of war, the metaphorical drums of war that are the quiz. The dreaded quiz that you now have to embark on. 10 questions on your epic quest to secure some goodies. This has just gone so much better than I wanted it to. Right. So, to those listening to this podcast, there are some goodies that Nick could possibly win here if he gets all of these questions right, or more questions than the next 9 guests that come on this show. And if you're listening, go to our socials, because you will find ways for you too to earn small goodie bags of collectibles for your favourite movie. But we're going to start now.
Quickly interject before you start this quiz. I take pride in the fact that I'm going to be first place until your next listener.
Well, you're setting the bar, and if you get all 10 questions right, then you automatically win something.
Surely I can't be knocked off the podium unless you create 11 or 12 questions. That's what you're going to have to do.
Possibly, we'll see. This is new. I'm treading new waters here. Right.
Okay, let's go.
Right.
Cool. Right. Everything's down.
Question 1. In The Lord of the Rings and the Fellowship of the Ring, Galadriel narrates the famous opening, where she describes and tells the story of the Great Rings. What I want to know, Nicholas, is how many of those rings were given to the Dwarf Lords?
Fuck. She says 9 rings are to men, isn't it?
9 are to men, 3 were to the elves, and obviously Sauron forged his in secret, the Master Ring.
I want to say 5 were to the Dwarf Lords. It sounds 5 were to no. Yeah? Yeah.
Is that your answer?
Yeah, 5.
It's 7.
I actually was going to say 7, and then I committed on 5.
Well,
that's fine. It's fine. I fucked it. Don't worry.
You got this. Let's go. Question 2. Nice easy one. How many members are there in the Fellowship of the Ring?
Oh Christ! My first number I thought to myself was 7. Like, I'm just going to double check, or is it 9? I'm now confusing myself with the rings. You got Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Boromir. Then you got the 4 little dopey hobbits. So 9.
Yeah, it's 9. You are correct.
Cool.
Right.
4
Question 3.
Hobbits.
At Bilbo's birthday party, Merry and Pippin steal a firework that explodes into what creature?
A dragon.
It's Smaug the dragon. Specifically Smaug, actually. I did my research, and Gandalf makes that firework of Smaug as a kind of like a fuck you middle finger to the dragon that was defeated at Dale.
And a bit of a reminder.
Absolutely. So, question 4. What is the formal name of the White City of Gondor?
Minas Tirith?
It is Minas Tirith. You are absolutely always going to get that one.
I was like, I actually paused then, like, is this a trick question?
Do you know what? When I wrote these, I was underestimating your knowledge of Lord of the Rings. I knew you knew the films really well, but I was thinking I was going to undercut you on some of these, but I think you might be setting a bar quite high on this one. Question 5. What creature is used to symbolise the presence of the eagles in the Lord of the Rings?
The moth.
It is the moth. You
what?
talked about it already.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, is this a trick question? Like, dude, like, I know all of this shit from when I was a kid, and it's kind of like the dinosaur facts. They stay there forever. So
yeah, absolutely.
The dwarven one was a good one. The ring one was a good one to start with. I won't break this flow. Keep going. Let's go.
Okay, so question 6. You're on a good streak here. How many Uruk-hai does Saruman send to take Helm's Deep in the Two Towers?
10,000.
That is the most correct you've ever been. It is 10,000.
Yeah, because Aragorn comes back and he's like, there's an army of at least 10,000. I will die as one of them. Sorry.
I wrote this one specifically for you as a member of Our Hollow, Our Home. You're going to enjoy this one. What is the name of the giant spider in The Return of the King?
Shelob.
Shelob. It's Shelob, the beast.
Right, okay. I was like, what's this got to do with Hollow? Like, okay. Like, what? Like... but yeah, if we ever see a spider, for instance, it's instantly named Shelob.
Absolutely. Terrifying. All of them. Question 8. How many ring wraiths are there in total?
9.
Absolutely. You're knocking this out of the park, my dude.
There's 9 because it was the 9 rings. It was the 9 rings of men who were like...
Yeah, you got it. You got it. Okay, right. Now we're going to go into... These last 2 questions aren't actually about the films. It's about... real life. Question 9. How many
what is
of
the meaning of life?
Yeah, what is the meaning of life?
Fuck.
Don't answer. Tricky waters there. Question 9. How many Fellowship cast members were taken to hospital to treat injuries sustained on set whilst shooting the films?
Like big cast members or like just everyone in general?
The Fellowship members. So the 9 people in the Fellowship, how many of them were taken to hospital for injuries sustained on set?
I know Orlando Bloom was because of the helicopter bungee jumping shit that he was doing. I know Viggo Mortensen did because he booted that, the helmet in this second film, and then was like, he broke his foot, so he screamed, and then they were like, that's the shot, and then he was like, I genuinely broke my foot. So they would have had to sort him out. I think either Merry or Pippin did something dumb, and they had to go as well. So far that's 3. I don't think Ian McKellen, as far as I'm aware, did anything dumb. Boromir dies, and Sean Bean, as we know, does. He's not a risk taker. He doesn't get in helicopters. So
Sean Bean always dies in films, but I think Sean Bean can't actually die in real life.
I think that's a genuine thing. So Gimli, I don't remember hearing anything about Gimli. So I'm going to go with a guess of 3, but it could be more. But I'm going with 3.
It is actually 3, but
yeah.
I'm gonna give you the point because the question was how many of them, but you were pretty much there. Orlando Bloom, the bungee jumping accident wasn't actually on set of Lord of the Rings. He injured himself twice during the filming. The first one was he fell off his horse, and the miniature double of Gimli fell on top of him and broke his ribs. Viggo Mortensen, obviously, as you said, he kicks the helmet in the Two Towers and breaks his foot, which is actually in the film. So those of you who are listening that don't know, in the shot in the Two Towers where Viggo Mortensen, Aragorn, kicks the helmet and screams and falls to his knees, he actually breaks his foot in that shot, and they left it in the film. And the third was Sean Astin, Samwise Gamgee. He, in the first film, when he goes into the water to chase Frodo,
was it.
in shooting, he stepped on a massive bit of glass that impaled his foot, and he had to get rushed to hospital for it. But 3, fair play. I wasn't sure that you were going to get that one, but you did. Right, here's your final question. Question 10. How many cast members of The Lord of the Rings actually met J.R.R. Tolkien in real life?
Okay, so it's either going to be all of them, or it's going to be Ian McKellen, or it's going to be none of them. Is J.R.R. Tolkien dead? Am I just... He is dead.
He is.
So none of them.
He is. I believe he died in the 80s.
Wait, this question's redundant then.
Is it?
He's dead. Yeah, you said how many of them have met him?
Yeah, how many of the cast of The Lord of the Rings, how many people, how many of the actors met Tolkien?
One, Ian McKellen.
I will give you one. It is one, but it's not Ian McKellen, it's Christopher Lee, Saruman.
Right. Right, so now you're confusing me because your last question was about the Fellowship members.
You still got that.
And then you said cast. I know I still got it, but that's 9 out of 10. I think
you got 9 out of 10, and you are setting the bar real high for anybody that comes on this show from
that first question. I'm kicking myself about because I would have gotten a full straight 10 if I just went with my original answer in my head.
You would have, and then I would have had to. I would have had to go on Amazon and buy you a bunch of things, very reluctantly.
But now you don't.
And now I don't. So thank you for getting that one wrong. But you have set the bar at 9 for my future guests. So well done. I'm impressed.
That's all right. Read it and weep. Read it and weep. I'm obviously the sickest member of this podcast because I'm the only one so far. Dude, it's been fun. This has been been a very, very good escapism for a Friday.
Well, I'm glad I could provide you some lockdown fun. For these trying times.
Yeah, it's been a good laugh, and hopefully I haven't. Sorry if I've insulted anybody with anything that I have said. That's my nice little disclaimer.
Also, I'm going to just throw it in now. Spoiler warning for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
No. They've been out long enough that if you haven't watched them, you're a dickhead. And you're not going to listen to this podcast if you haven't watched them. You're not going to be like, oh, I don't know what happens, but I'm going to listen to this podcast. Oh no, they've spoiled it for me. What assholes. No, don't fucking listen to the podcast if you think that you're going to get it spoiled, right? Like, if I see one of your other podcasts and it's about a movie I haven't seen yet, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm going to watch it.
You'd be surprised. You would be surprised. Anyway, thank you very much, Nick, for coming on the show. It's been real fun, and I'm really glad that you were the first person to come on the show with me. So thank you very much.
Cheers, bro. It's been great.
Massive thank you to everybody who has tuned into this podcast to the end. I really appreciate your support. If you can head over to our socials, share our posts, like everything that we've posted up there recently, it helps massively. Also, you will be able to keep up to date with future guests, what films we're going to be talking about, the schedule of the guest show and the quickies show. It's all going to be there with regular posts, so make sure you keep an eye on that and stay in tune with what we're doing. Next Sunday, we'll be releasing the first YouTube exclusive Just Another Movie Guy Quickie, where I will be talking about Netflix's Extraction and The Platform out of Spanish cinema. And I believe Nick is going to come on that with me as well and talk a little bit about Extraction, not to the extent of this podcast, but definitely a little bit. Tune in 2 weeks' time, where the second guest show will be coming out, where I'm going to be talking about Star Wars, the original trilogy, with Jimbo Shreds of YouTube fame. So look out for that one. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in. I have been Bobby Brooks, Just Another Movie Guy. Peace and love to you all. Stay safe. I will see you next time. Thank you.